Nationalism has often been a recurring force in shaping global politics. From the interwar period of the 1920s and 1930s to the resurgence in the 21st century, nationalist ideologies have continued to manifest in various forms. While history might suggest that humanity would have learned from the past, recent years have shown that nationalism is not just a relic but a persistent undercurrent. Ethnic competition theory, the root of nationalism. Ethnic competition theory posits that within societies, different social and ethnic groups compete for valuable resources like power, status, and economic opportunities. This competition often leads to in-group favoritism and out-group exclusionism, contributing to heightened nationalist sentiments. During both the interwar period and modern times, economic downturns, job scarcity, and resource constraints have often triggered feelings of competition and fear among majority groups. For example, in Europe, increased migration and economic challenges have sometimes been framed as threats to the majority population, intensifying nationalist rhetoric and policies. The theory suggests that when economic conditions worsen or demographic shifts occur, the mechanisms of social identification become stronger, leading to more pronounced nationalism and xenophobia. The interwar period. Nationalism unleashed. The 1920s and 1930s in Europe were marked by the rise of nationalist ideologies, often characterized by leaders promoting ideas of ethnic and national superiority. Countries like Germany, Italy, and Japan saw the emergence of fascist and imperialist movements that sought to unify their nations by emphasizing a common identity and excluding those deemed other. Economic instability, particularly the Great Depression, created fertile ground for these ideologies to take root, as people sought answers to their hardships in protectionist and exclusionary policies. Nationalism became a rallying cry, justifying aggressive expansionist policies and leading to a global conflict that reshaped the world. The era demonstrated how nationalism, when coupled with economic distress, could spiral into destructive paths. Nationalist propaganda during this period often portrayed the nation as under siege, needing strong leadership to protect it from both internal and external enemies. This narrative was used to consolidate power and justify repressive measures against perceived threats, leading to authoritarian regimes and widespread human rights abuses. The 21st century. Déjà vu, or a new manifestation? In the 21st century, nationalism has resurfaced in various forms, presenting both old and new challenges. Movements like Brexit, the rise of far-right parties across Europe, and the resurgence of nationalist rhetoric in countries like the United States under Donald Trump highlight how nationalism has adapted to the modern world. However, today's nationalism is more complex, manifesting not just as state-based nationalism, but also as sub-state nationalism, such as the Catalan independence movement in Spain. Additionally, nationalist sentiments have been fueled by global issues like immigration, economic inequality, and cultural shifts, leading to a fragmented political landscape where national identity often trumps cosmopolitan values. Despite the differing contexts, the resurgence of nationalism today shares common roots with its interwar predecessor: economic insecurity, perceived threats, and the desire for a cohesive national identity. This new wave of nationalism also intersects with modern technologies, such as social media, which can rapidly amplify nationalist messages and mobilize supporters across borders. The digital age has provided a platform for both the spread of nationalist ideologies and the resistance against them, making the current landscape more volatile and unpredictable. Passion versus reason, the uncomfortable reality. Nationalism often appeals to emotions rather than reason, making it a challenging phenomenon to analyze and address. It thrives on the human need for belonging and the desire to be part of a larger collective, often leading to irrational sentiments that override objective analysis. For instance, in Spain, the Catalan separatist movement reflects a passionate quest for autonomy and national identity, even within a democratic and decentralized state. Similarly, nationalist leaders worldwide use emotionally charged narratives to rally support, framing their causes in terms of cultural pride, historical grievances, and existential threats. This emotional appeal makes nationalism a powerful but volatile force, capable of uniting people behind a common cause, but also of sowing division and conflict when it descends into xenophobia and exclusion. It is this tension between passion and reason that often makes nationalism a divisive force in politics. While it can inspire unity and a sense of purpose, it can also lead to blind loyalty and an unwillingness to engage with differing perspectives. This dual nature of nationalism continues to perplex and challenge policymakers, scholars, and citizens alike. Economic conditions and nationalism. Economic conditions have always played a critical role in the rise of nationalist sentiments. In both historical and contemporary contexts, periods of economic instability, high unemployment, and competition for resources have often led to a surge in nationalism and xenophobia. In modern Europe, for example, the economic challenges posed by the 2008 financial crisis, combined with the influx of migrants and refugees, have been framed by nationalist parties as direct threats to the livelihoods and cultural identities of native populations. These parties argue that immigrants compete for jobs, housing, and social services, leading to increased anti-immigrant sentiment and the rise of protectionist policies. This trend echoes the interwar period, where economic distress was a key factor in the rise of fascist regimes that sought to protect their nations by excluding and scapegoating minority groups. Banal nationalism, the everyday kind. Banal nationalism, a concept introduced by political scientist Michael Billig, refers to the subtle, everyday expressions of nationalism that permeate society. These include symbols like national flags, patriotic rhetoric, and cultural practices that go largely unnoticed, but continuously shape societal attitudes and reinforce national identity. While such expressions may seem harmless or even positive, they can lay the groundwork for more aggressive forms of nationalism, especially when political agents exploit these sentiments for divisive purposes. For example, political leaders may use banal nationalism to foster a sense of unity and pride, but in times of crisis, this can quickly turn into a narrative of exclusion and superiority. Thus, banal nationalism serves as a reminder that nationalism exists on a spectrum, capable of shifting from benign expressions of patriotism to more dangerous forms of xenophobia and exclusion. Civic versus ethnic nationalism. To navigate the complexities of modern nationalism, it's important to distinguish between civic and ethnic nationalism. Civic nationalism is based on shared political values, constitutional rights, and a commitment to common principles, emphasizing inclusivity and the idea that anyone can belong regardless of their ethnic background. Ethnic nationalism, on the other hand, is rooted in a common cultural or ethnic identity, often leading to an emotional attachment to one's group and a sense of exclusivity. While most states exist somewhere on a spectrum between these two forms, the dominance of ethnic nationalism can lead to exclusionary policies and social divisions. For example, countries that emphasize ethnic nationalism may promote policies that marginalize minority groups, while those that embrace civic nationalism strive to build inclusive societies based on shared values rather than ethnic heritage. Latent passions and mobilization. Nationalism persists because it taps into deep-seated human instincts for belonging, identity, and group cohesion. These latent passions can be mobilized by political agents, particularly during times of crisis or societal change. Leaders may appeal to nationalist sentiments to rally support, presenting themselves as defenders of the nation against perceived threats, whether they be economic, cultural, or geopolitical. This mobilization can serve both benign and divisive purposes, as seen in calls for national unity during wars or in the exclusionary rhetoric used by populist movements. The resurgence of nationalism in the 21st century reflects this dynamic, where global issues like immigration, economic inequality, and cultural shifts provide fertile ground for nationalist narratives to take root and gain momentum. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.